in my mind, in a very good and a right way. We started, Susan, if you would pull up the phase 1. We started just about a month ago, like Leslie said, finding out what our cuts are, proposed cuts are, and we've really went to work since then. This process has went through district accountability already, and you can see as a reminder, I don't know if some of you haven't seen any of this before, this is also posted on our website. We have cut down many items in phase 1, including...
Can you read that?
If you can just scroll down just kind of slowly. A lot of travel registration, cell phones, a lot of administration costs, a lot of dues and fees that if we want to continue to join and go to things, we're going to pay for ourselves. No more charging mileage to the district. Because of our good management in food service the last several years, we don't have to we can save $20,000 and we don't have to transfer to food service anymore. There's utilities costs. With the field house going away about a year from now, we're going to save some money there. There's a lot of activities that we're looking at not paying stipends anymore, and that goes with some of the teachers too that have been coming in 0 hour and getting extra stipends. And you can continue to scroll down on here. All of this phase 1. By the way, we'll also continue to cut budget cuts in the buildings, at least 5%. All of this is now, you can stop for a minute, all of this is, phase 1 has already went through our District Accountability Committee. That meeting was held on February 28th. Their recommendation to the board was, yes, we're in favor of phase 1. They also made a reservation for phase 2. We had another District Accountability meeting last Monday night. The recommendation again was recommend phase 2 with a similar reservation. The main reservation there was to have this community meeting. And you can see a lot of supplies cut too. And if you will scroll clear at the bottom. That's not the bottom I wanted, but that's all right. It'll come out on the next sheet. We still have a gap with phase 1 of $315,000, and you'll see on another sheet in a minute that just doing the trim cuts, believe me, it's not just trim. This district came up with almost $225,000 of cuts by cutting all of those things out. And is that going to affect everybody? Yeah, but that's better than going to people. Okay, phase 2. Phase 2 is a lot shorter. We start with the gap in funding. We also have some staff members that are getting an extra stipend for core period. We're looking at taking that out. We did add one thing back into phase 2. We have not had substitute custodians all year, so with benefits, we're adding money back into that. And if we do go to phase 2, here's where most of the 4-day week calculations come up. Yes, it is going to hurt some salary for our custodians, maintenance people, our bus drivers, and our food service people. And we feel very confident on these numbers that we can come up with this. All right, now if you'll close that one down for a minute and then open up the summary budget sheet. Basically, the green in the middle is where we started with about $540,000. There's the phase 1 cuts, the gap. Phase 2, we can save another $153,000 if the 4-day week passes, along with the other cuts, and then we have a gap of $162,000. Another thing that's in consideration is giving vertical and horizontal salary increases of $75,000. That would then change the gap to $237,000. So we're not finished yet. Still have a ways to go, but that's where we're heading right now. All right, if you would now pull up the CREST document, and I'll turn this over to Leslie just briefly to give an introduction to this.
And I'm going to do this because Mr. Wynn was not here when we first started these conversations. I've been on the board for 5 years now, as have a couple of other members and then other new members have come on. The reality is, for the last 10 years, board members have watched a decline in our enrollment here in Salida. And so finally, a few years ago, we just said, enough. We can't sit here and watch this anymore. We want to do something about it. At that time, Mr. Rouse became our superintendent, and the board started having conversations with him about being creative about how we stop this decline in our numbers. And we started talking about bringing in private schools under the public school system. Crest was open to that. Strawberry Door was open to that for their kindergarten. We've been doing this with Crest for 3 years now. Strawberry Door, we only did it for 1 year because they didn't have the enrollment numbers necessary to keep that going under our program. So we felt like it was the one way to bring more students into our district and stabilize our numbers. What happened that we didn't quite expect was the way that the state figures our funding is when you have declining enrollment, instead of just giving you that drop in the enrollment as far as funding, we get approximately between $5,000 and $6,000 per student each year, the funding from the state. Excuse me. And so when your numbers are declining, they don't just take the number of the following year, the drop, and automatically give you that. They try and average it out to make it a softer drop, if that makes sense. So they do something called a 5-year average. So instead of just going from 1,200 students to 1,170 students in 1 year and making that decrease, they average the two numbers, and we get somewhere in the middle, again, softening so that we can get as much money as we can. It's really been a benefit from the state. However, when your numbers go up, they don't average it the same way. And so for a couple of years, for a few years, the district has put money into Crest Academy. However, if you can see in this chart, and actually before Mr. Webb steps in, if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have those students, and our numbers would be different. The other thing is, it's not just a financial decision, but it's an educational decision. People want alternatives and different opportunities for their children as far as education. And we didn't want that to be something where some children could get into that system and some could not. I'm going to have Mr. Webb step in and talk about the financing here.
Thank you, Leslie. Basically, the blue line shows, and if you could scroll down just a little bit, that's with Crest, and the green line is without Crest. As you can see, starting in 2012-13, we're going to start seeing huge advantage. And this is a combination of how much has the district been supporting Crest Academy. And a little bit of this has to do with Horizons too, it's not just Crest. Until we start to see a real net gain. Now, if you scroll back up just a minute, Susan, to those numbers on top again. Right now, for next year, in 11-12, we're looking at, with Crest, we're showing 43,000. If we would have never supported Crest, we'd be at 101,000. But look what happens the following year. We see a $60,000 gain versus an 82 without, and the big year is 2013-14. So we're going to really see some huge net gains, and that's pretty much if enrollment stays the same right now. We're thinking that probably both those programs are going to start growing. All right, before I turn it over